The Ricky Council era is officially over in Philadelphia, and we have found out what his new destination will be. On top of that, we have another reporter pleading for the Philadelphia 76ers to come to an agreement with Quentin Grimes with a little bit of different logic than we've heard to this point. I do want to reflect on each of these storylines emerging surrounding the Sixers and everything else that is the latest. Yes, it is the dead of the offseason. We're going to continue plugging right here on Sixers Digest. And with that said, I want each and every one of you a part of the party. So if you have not already, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. At this point in time, 66% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to us here at Sixers Digest. We're going to keep it rolling regardless of what is going on or what isn't going on in the Sixers world right now. It is certainly the dead of the offseason, the quiet time, but I still think there's a lot to be excited about with this Sixers team. Now, to dive into the latest, and do want to start off with the report from Shams Charania here that writes, free agent guard/forward Ricky Council IV will sign a one-year contract with the Brooklyn Nets, his agent tells ESPN. The former 76ers wing appeared in a team-high 73 games last season, averaging 7.3 points and 2.9 rebounds. Now, I do think it is a bit of a fun fact that Ricky Council did lead this team in games played last year, but he did not quite lead in production there. Now, to dive into exactly what he brought into the table before I reflect a bit on his Nets future, do want to highlight his stats here. So in 17.1 minutes per game, he averaged 7.3 points, 2.9 rebounds, 1.3 assists, shot just 38.2% from the field, 25.8% from beyond the three-point arc. He is set to turn 24 as of tomorrow, I believe, is the date for Ricky Council, but nonetheless, his future will reside in Brooklyn. Now, before there are some victory laps of this is another one that got away or mismanagement from the Sixers standpoint, this is not a guaranteed deal with the Nets roster, and to put it into context, shout out to my guy Adam Aronson of Philly Voice, who writes up, whether or not Council earned a standard deal or an Exhibit 10 contract, which is a training camp deal that comes with the signing bonus if the player ends up with that organization's G League affiliate, remains to be seen. Brooklyn currently has 16 players on its standard roster, but 4 of them have non-guaranteed salaries. Council, whose 24th birthday is Sunday, led the Sixers in games played last season. He failed to utilize that opportunity after he emerged as an intriguing rookie option on a two-way contract the year prior. Council earned a long-term deal by the end of the 23-24 season, but his sophomore year was so disappointing that he was waived with non-guaranteed years left on the deal. Now, I will be rooting for Ricky Council from here on out. This is certainly not a guy that I have hate in my heart with, and I will say I've interviewed the dude a couple times, has been pretty cool with me. I will also say I've watched him play in several pro-ams, and from guys that probably should not look on par with him certainly have. I watched Ryan Arcidiacono absolutely pants him in a one-on-one setting, and one that opened my eyes. I mean, literally put the ball between his legs, hit a three over top of him in a way that I was just like, wow, that was a little bit stunning there, Ricky. Now, granted, he's not going to be judged on this, on his actual on-court play from an NBA standpoint there, but my point being here, I don't think Ricky's a guy that we should be like, oh man, I can't believe that guy got away. I think he's going to have a bit of a difficult time carving out an NBA niche for himself, and that's my biggest critique for him as a player. Is the talent is absolutely there in its entirety, but what is the scaled down version of him that actually equates to winning at an NBA level? And I struggle to find a consistent answer to that. And the dip in three-point percentage and field goal percentage, and honestly just overall decision-making process last year was really disappointing, and particularly in a season which was just complete madness in its entirety. That should have been an environment in which Ricky thrived. Now, granted, maybe he took strides in the right direction where if this was a proper basketball team, which it was not for most of last year, that maybe that would have been a cleaner setting for him. But I do think Ricky in specifics here is a guy that that should have been an opportunity he jumped on and ran with and proves why he belonged. And he just straight up didn't from all of last season. I do think Brooklyn is a good spot for him. It is a youthful core, a team that is still figuring out who its foundational pieces are. But I will also say to that same point, this is a team that used 5 first-round picks this year. This is a team that has Cam Thomas on the team, has Michael Porter Jr. on the team. There aren't going to be a ton of shots to go around, and he's going to have to find a lane for how do I stick in the NBA. I'm not ready to run with the belief that Ricky Council is a part of the Nets' future, because I don't really think that is how things play itself out. But nonetheless, we'll be rooting for Ricky, and we will see ultimately how the cards do fall. Now, the other storyline that I did want to dive into has to do with Quentin Grimes. Now, this is the largest story that continues to take on throughout the offseason here regarding the Sixers, and I do believe at some point we will get that Shams bomb saying that Quentin Grimes and the Sixers have agreed to a contract for whatever dollar amount and whatever years, but we continue to see that drag out. Now, this article pops up here, and to pull up writing, NBA writer urges Sixers to compromise with restricted free agent Quentin Grimes, which did pique my interest a little bit. And the case that the writer does make here is, quote, the Philadelphia 76ers are still in ongoing contract talks with restricted free agent Quentin Grimes, who is coming off a career-best season between Philadelphia and the Dallas Mavericks, with obviously his best stretches coming in Philadelphia. Philadelphia extended an $8.74 million qualifying offer to Grimes in June and now holds the rights to match any offer he receives. Still, he remains a free agent as July nears its end, with the Sixers appearing to be in the driver's seat in negotiations. However, NBA writer Dan Favale of Bleacher Report believes the club needs to find a compromise, as the 25-year-old swingman could accept his qualifying offer and bet on himself ahead of next season. Quote, Philly shouldn't be squeezing Grimes that hard, he wrote. It's also clearly not putting enough money on the table for Grimes to sign on the dotted line. This isn't to say that the Sixers should pay him whatever, but they need to find common ground. And it continues on, and this is the more notable part to me. Grimes was traded to Philadelphia in February, averaging 21.9 points, 5.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 1.5 steals across 33.6 minutes per game in 28 regular season appearances on the injury-riddled squad. While the organization may be hesitant to offer him a lucrative long-term deal after a short but productive stint, there is clearly interest in retaining him beyond this upcoming season. If Philadelphia is banking on its roster returning to near full strength, Grimes could see a dip in production and become more affordable. However, that's a big gamble for the 76ers as he continues his impressive performance next season and walk in unrestricted free agency. Now, my direct pushback to this is I would argue it is a far bigger risk for Quentin Grimes to accept that qualifying offer than it would be for the Philadelphia 76ers to allow him to take this. And again, to put this into context, what that qualifying offer means is he gets those $8.74 million. He is no longer in the restricted free agent pool. It is a one-year deal, and he can be an unrestricted free agent next season. I think that makes a lot more sense for a player like Cam Thomas, who there seems to be some bad blood between the Brooklyn Nets and Thomas in these negotiations here. Grimes, in particular, in this case here, has been around the NBA to this point. He started his career on the New York Knicks. He's played for the Dallas Mavericks. He's played for the Detroit Pistons, and he's now on the Philadelphia 76ers. This is not a guy that has found his footing in the NBA to this point, despite him showing some flashes at each of those destinations there. I would certainly point to the New York Knicks as the most convincing sample size of performances that we have seen from him. I was a believer in Quentin Grimes at the times when he was playing for the Knicks. That I personally looked at this, and this being a couple years ago to this point, as that is likely their shooting guard of the future here. Now, obviously, that has not been how things played itself out there, and who knows what the behind-the-scenes stories are in all of this here. I will say Daryl Morey has been pretty upfront, and when you dive into the logistics of each of those trades that did go down, is most of the time it has been financially motivated more than anything, and there are a lot of quote-unquote cap casualties that Grimes sort of falls into that boat on, but nonetheless, he landed here in Philadelphia and absolutely balled out for the second half of the season. Now, I understand being a bit skeptical and believing that this is here to say that in the overall sample size of last year, this being across both his time with the Mavericks and the Sixers, that in his 26.8 minutes per game, averaged 14.6 points, 4.3 rebounds, 3.0 assists, shot 46.7% from the field, 38.5% from beyond the three-point arc there, and 49% on corner threes there. Grimes is a guy that I am optimistic can sort of scale up his role up or down depending on what the Sixers team needs. Now, the reason that I say it's a bigger risk to Grimes specifically than the Sixers taking that deal is I don't think there's any way around a statistical reduction from him next year. Just look around at the other bodies, hopefully healthy next year, when we're talking about Joel Embiid, hopefully, Paul George, hopefully, Jared McCain, confident in. Tyrese Maxey, confident in. VJ Edgecombe, confident in. Those are at least 5 guys right there that I think all hop him in the pecking order for offensive production. If we're just talking about stats, and that can't be the case with Quentin Grimes, if we're going to be honest with ourselves for what his full NBA role is, he's going to have to be a guy that defends, can handle the ball, can do things outside of just be a bucket, in which he proved to be for the second half of last year. That's quite just not going to work itself out in his favor from a value standpoint here. For Grimes specifically, and for the Sixers, to be perfectly honest, I think the best case scenario for both sides is still to agree to some form of long-term deal. And I understand the concern that is continually pushed about how many guards are on this roster and how do they all fit together in the future. In Grimes' case specifically, that with that concern in mind, you should be planning for the future by having tradable contracts. Daryl Morey has a great chance to get him on a tradable contract that can be moved for a better fitting piece when the opportunity presents itself. This could be a win-win for all parties, that Grimes could return and end up proving a valuable part of the Sixers team. If he doesn't, get him locked up to a dollar figure that can be flexible there. And who knows who that next player, that next potential missing piece could be to pop on the marketplace there. But boy, we should know the NBA well enough by now that understand that that next name is always coming. There's always going to be trades. There's always going to be other organizations invested in moving on, looking to upgrade. And I do think there is still enough there in Grimes to pique some interest around the league if that time does come. Nonetheless, we will continue to allow this storyline to play itself out. There is still no answer or no deadline in sight for when this does ultimately all come to fruition. But we're going to keep on rocking and being on top of things here on Sixers Digest. So let me know what you guys think about each of those here. Do you have any, frustrations about the loss of Ricky Council? I'm certainly not there. I saw enough of Ricky last year and sort of came to the determination about midway through last season that I just did not think he probably is an NBA player in a way that equates to winning. It's unfortunate, but it's very competitive and it's very difficult. And the guy that I will point to as a clear contrast to Ricky Council is Justin Edwards in itself, who the Sixers have rewarded with a standard deal, a guy that I do believe in for the long-term future. And what I would directly compare them to is when you think about Ricky Council and Justin Edwards, is all that Justin Edwards does is the right thing with the basketball. He's going to make the right connecting pass. He's going to take the catch and shoot three when you ask him to. He's going to defend at a high level. When it is Ricky Council, it is a straight up roll the dice and we'll see what happens. That it is almost like you spin the wheel and he could look like LeBron James one night and could look like Karis LeVert the next. Could look like you name a player, Tony Roten, Hollis Thompson, guys that maybe he probably should not look like. Now, to that same point, that I do think to compare to Summer League, in which there is plenty of criticism to Justin Edwards, that was a setting where Ricky Council would have balled out in a way that Justin simply didn't. But I do think when building to the future, that you're not interested in guys that can scale up their role to that extent. I'm perfectly comfortable having Justin Edwards, who can be a fifth starter on a competitive basketball team when you have all these other pieces in mind, the McCains, the Maxies, the VJ Edgecombs, the Paul George, the Joel Embiid. You got to find the glue guys to that, and Edwards is way more of that than Ricky Council has ever flashed to be. So we'll see how everything plays it out. But one more time, do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Appreciate each and one of you guys for tuning into this video here. I know it is the dead of the offseason, but we're going to continue on plugging right here on Sixers Digest. Once again, only 34% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to the channel to this point. If you have not already, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. Drop a like on the video here. I'll be back talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.